person is saying, I've heard there is a wave of consciousness which permeates the cosmos, and living creatures are made sentient by contact with it. Does such a wave exist? And if so, can you tell us more about it?
All beings are sentient in their own way, because the vibration you're talking about is simply the frequency of existence itself. The level of awareness, or the necessary level of expression of the awareness of your connection to that vibration, is what may appear to be something becoming sentient to you from your physical perspective. But all things are conscious in their own way, even though they may express it very differently, and are in touch, whether they know it or not, with the frequency of existence itself, which is self-aware.
Can you describe what the difference is between when you're in spirit and you feel that existence is effortless versus the experience of Earth where survival seems to take effort?
Survival does not take effort if you align with the idea of your true self and follow the formula. That's the whole point, is that you can transform the idea of physical survival into something effortless, into something joyful, into something to be experienced in a beautiful spiritual way, because physical reality is no less spiritual than what you call the spirit realm. It's just a different expression of it. So the idea is to allow yourself to know that in physical reality, while you may have challenges and actually have to take physical actions, these physical actions and challenges don't in any way, shape, or form actually have to be a struggle. So the idea is to allow them to become more effortless, the path of least resistance that automatically happens when you follow the formula, which again is the reason we give it to you. It's the instruction manual for how reality works. Ignore it, there will be a struggle. Flow with it, follow the instructions precisely, and you will feel no effort.
And along that idea of effort, it's noticeable that when beings are young and healthy,
Yes.
that they have almost seemingly unlimited energy. It
Yes.
feels effortless to exist in that energy state.
Yes.
And then as people age and animals age, it seems that the existence itself becomes filled with more effort.
But that's only because of belief systems and processes and transformational ideas that someone may have adopted as their theme. It's not a natural thing to become more efforted as you age, because we don't. As we mature, we don't experience any more effort than we did as a child. You don't have to. It just depends on your theme of exploration.
So part of the challenge is to understand the relationship to the collective's view of aging versus what the individual is truly capable of if they are willing to let go of negative beliefs, as well as continuing to find passion in life.
Yes. Is it not even in your own ancient scriptures that it is important to be like a child to enter the kingdom of heaven? That's what it means. It means if you reclaim your childlike nature and adopt the idea of belief systems that are truly in alignment with your true self, then you are experiencing the idea of the gift of spirit, of the nature of spiritual reality, of heaven on earth.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
When activating an android, this is about androids, is the computer connecting to a human oversoul? Humans seem obsessed with collecting or creating robotic imitations of themselves in the form of androids. Is this a common practice among more advanced civilizations? And have any human androids been deployed onto Earth that can integrate into our society?
All right. Now, when you say human oversoul, understand that the oversoul itself is not human and is not necessarily geared toward the idea of expressing itself as humans. Extensions that are human from an oversoul don't necessarily have to come from an oversoul that is exclusively expressing itself as a human. So We simply want to clarify the idea that referring to an oversoul as a human oversoul might be a little misleading. However, the idea of what you're referring to as an android can connect to the same oversoul that a human is an extension of, and most likely will to some degree, although there are other levels of oversouls that might be available to an android that are not necessarily available to a human because of the human's choice of theme. Whereas an android might be a little bit more open-ended in terms of the themes it would explore. Therefore, there might be more accessibility to different kinds of oversouls that might make an android seem a little bit more alien than a human is used to, because they have access to things that the human may not. But this is a common practice, and there have been androids on your planet from time to time, for a variety of reasons we will not go into right now.
That's pretty exciting. Next question is, many spiritual teachers talk about just being in the moment and to forget about your life story and drama and just be. But you seem to preach action and full embodiment of one's life story. Can you touch on why that is and why so many spiritual teachers teach the opposite of what you teach?
You are, from a linear perspective, seeing something as an opposite that's not. Allowing yourself to embrace fully your true life story is the essence of living in the moment. So don't make a dichotomy where none needs to exist. These are not opposite ideas.
Are there any spiritual teachers that you would recommend we listen to, or teachers in general besides yourselves?
Whatever you are attracted to listen to is what you need to listen to. We do not endorse specifics. The idea simply is for you to take charge of your life and find out that what you gravitate to is what you need at the moment, no matter whether it is us or someone else. Go with the flow.
What makes us special as human race compared to other members of Interstellar Alliance? Why did you decide to pick us specifically to be a member of the Interstellar Alliance? And at what point in our history and why was that decided?
You are our ancestors. We are literally genetically connected to you. We are family. The idea of the demarcation line was when the hybridization agenda began, about 6,000 years ago in your terms of understanding. So the idea is that we are connected. We are family. That's the difference, specifically. The story involves humans and hybrids and the evolution of the human race.
So are most of the beings in the Interstellar Alliance humanoid in the sense of five? No.
No. The majority are not in any way, shape, or form. But there are those that are relations, that are cousins, that are similar in terms of their evolutionary path. But no, the vast majority have nothing to do with looking like a human.
So it would be like octopi and other creatures that have sentient intelligence beyond ours, or?
Yes, and some that you can't even imagine because there is absolutely no analogy or correlation to the beings on your planet.
So how did all of these beings come together, and what would you say is the level of consciousness of the beings that are part of this alliance?
Those that understand and act upon the idea of whole systems.
So can you give us an example of a species we're not aware of that would look nothing like a human?
Well, we've told you about several of them. We told you about the ones that exist almost like spheres that roll around on the inside of a bubble in liquid space. We've told you about that. That's nothing like a human. Yes?
Yes.
We will go into different varieties of extraterrestrials that are non-human at another time in another transmission.
It almost seems like there's some sort of an organizing body that would then create the ability for all these different types of beings to be able to connect in.
As we have told you in the formula, the natural result of following it And understanding whole systems is the organizing principle of synchronicity. Therefore, synchronicity is the organizing mechanism that brings all of these beings together.
Absolutely fascinating. So our little corner of the reality where we have humanoid types that we're interacting with, essentially, as our first contact experiences.
Yes. Will make it a smoother transition for many of you because it's something relatively familiar.
And is that by a grand plan, or is that something that the Alliance orchestrates for that very specific reason?
It is synchronicity and also amplified and magnified by the Alliance.
So something happens when all these consciousnesses join together and form this alliance?
Oh, yes. We'll go into that at another time as well.
Oh, that's pretty exciting. Okay, so
as you move more deeply into the idea of membership in the Alliance, there will be many things to explain and describe to you that will go beyond what you typically think of as interactions with extraterrestrial beings. We will give you a fuller picture of what it means to be a member of the Alliance. This will happen sometime in the window of open contact, which begins next year of your time in 2023.
At what age did you first learn about Earth? Was the Earth you encountered in our timeline or in your timeline? And these are multiple questions here. And do the Earths from different timelines actually message one another? And if so, how did they do it?
In your terms of understanding, I was about, well, somewhere between 5 and 7, because our year is not the same as your year, in which I was trained by my father as a contact specialist and began to be told about the idea of your timeline of Earth. There are other timelines of Earth, of course, that have hybridization agendas, and other versions, to put it linearly, of myself and others that interact with them. Communication between various Earths sometimes happen between or through the devices of first contact specialists that might be able and capable of projecting their consciousness into parallel realities, but some versions of Earth actually have the wherewithal, either biologically or technologically, of communicating with other parallel versions of Earth and downloading information and sharing information between them. In the same way you might have diplomatic relations with another country, there are versions of Earth that have diplomatic relations of other versions of Earth in parallel realities.
Okay, thank you. Would you say that humans have the widest range of emotions out of all the species you've encountered? And what's the purpose of all these different emotions?
No, it is not the widest range that we have encountered. There are some species that have many different kinds of emotions that are not even possible for you to have in your biology. Secondly, as we have said, emotions usually are that which is used by belief systems as a reinforcing factor along with thoughts and behaviors to make the belief system seem real, to seem factual, by making you feel that they're real. So emotions are usually utilized, though there are some exceptions, by belief systems to make them seem more solid, more factual, more real, so that you can continue to have a physical experience. It's a reinforcing mechanism used by belief systems. Remember that if you didn't feel that your beliefs were real, you would really not have a deeper understanding or experience of physical reality. It would be kind of like looking at a two-dimensional image.
So, for example, when we start creating androids that are more and more human-like, will they actually start to experience emotions like we do?
Of a type, yes. They may not necessarily always be emotions like you understand or experience them, but yes, they will experience the idea of emotions to a certain degree, but some of them may be experienced in a very different way.
It almost sounds like they would have the ability to separate from emotions more easily than humans.
It depends. on their programming and their purpose for being.
I guess we can explore that later, but I could just see where different types of negative behaviors that humans express, would those be programmed into androids also?
As we have said, the challenge for humans with regard to artificial intelligence is not so much the idea of allowing them to become intelligent, but not allowing them to become intelligent enough. True intelligence understands whole systems and would never negate a part of that system in any way, shape, or form. So only by making androids too similar to humans will you encounter some of the fear-based scenarios that you might expect. But when allowed to be fully intelligent, those scenarios simply don't exist in an understanding of whole systems.
How much time would you say is it going to take before androids become a much more common part of our society, where they actually look like humans and do functions maybe like slavery in a sense, because they're able to do these things for us and we no longer would have to?
It doesn't have to be formatted like slavery. They can be given freedom of choice, because again, remember, that question only comes from a lack of understanding of what true intelligence is all about. Again, when something understands whole systems, it is in their nature to be of service to those systems, not as a slave, but as a freely given service, because it understands that it's enhancing itself while it's enhancing the whole system. In about 20 years, give or take.
Wow, it's pretty fascinating. This person is saying that many years ago they saw a fairy who sprinkled golden fairy dust on their head. She was transparent and she could see her body and wings, and they were red and green. What can you tell us about that encounter?
Well, again, an encounter with an elemental made out of the collective clay of consciousness of your world that can shift into physical and non-physical reality at will, by choice. The idea of the so-called fairy dust is an elemental form of understanding the basic building blocks of physical reality expressed in energy forms. Some might say they might be representative of monatomic elements, but they are really a transitional form of energy between physical and non-physicality. Sort of a materialization of energy motes, energy atoms, if you want to use that term. The raw material out of which an elemental can physicalize itself. So you are being gifted with the material that the elemental is using to create its very body. Sort of an expression of giving of itself, sharing of itself, giving you the fairy dust, so to speak.
Love it. Sounds like Peter Pan.
Yes, we understand the analogy, but it's not so much about Peter Pan as it is about Tinkerbell.
Tinkerbell. This person wants to know about fighting illness, that the warlike victim perpetrator mentality is something that human beings are exploring. And even in our own bodies, we have special cells that fight off invaders. Can you give us a more positive way to look at what is happening as we go through an illness other than fighting it off?
Yes, if you actually pay attention to the mechanisms inside your body, you will understand that your body doesn't fight off invaders. It incorporates them and absorbs them and transforms them. It allows them to pass on, so to speak, to a different state that is no longer harmful to the body. So you need a deeper understanding of the mechanisms that are actually going on in your body so that you don't look at it as a war or a fighting situation, because that's not what's happening. It's a vibrational shift to a different state of being. It's not a fight. And so therefore, with regard to illness, more acceptance of why the illness is there will allow it to transform more quickly by understanding the lessons that it is there to teach you based on your belief systems.
So some people have dreams where they're communicating with the illness and it's fraught with tension and desperation to survive type thing. And then others have sort of a loving communication with another consciousness.
Yes, there you go. The different ways you can relate to the idea of the consciousness of the illness itself and the purpose that it may serve to teach you more about your belief systems and who you really are and what you're capable of doing. So it's not about fighting, it's about relating, it's about communication, it's about understanding and letting it pass on into a different state once you have learned the lesson, once you have absorbed the meaning.
So from the standpoint of resonance, many people might be frightened by the idea of resonating with the consciousness of an illness that they are, in a sense, attempting to surmount.
Yes.
And that would be one of the first steps of allowing yourself to have communication with it and asking it what it is attempting to show you.
Just like an emotion, like fear. You make it your friend. You listen to the message that it's there to tell you, because fear is telling you that your energy is out of alignment because you're filtering it through a negative fear-based vibration or belief system. Similarly, that's in a sense what an illness is a physicalized version of fear, telling you that something's out of whack, something's out of alignment, whether it be your energy or your beliefs or something else. Pay attention to it. It's there to actually help you transform yourself in a variety of ways. It's only in the resistance and the fighting of it that it lasts longer.
So much communication is available to us from so many different sources. It's really quite amazing.
And as we have shared with you many times, communication is one of the forms of abundance. So express your abundance through communication because it will give you new ideas, new perspectives. It will allow others to join you in new ways that you may not have thought is possible, to communicate your true self and engage others, including the idea of other levels of consciousness, in a new kind of a relationship that can allow you to transform in the direction you prefer, much more quickly.
And can you touch on ways that we can balance the chakras or energy centers of the body?
Follow the formula for now. Let's keep it simple.
Okay.
Of course, attract yourself to whatever permission slip you feel will work for you. But let's bring it down to its simplest form. Follow the formula, and you will be in balance.
And this person is talking about the space between emotions. Can you speak on the space between emotions, thought, and behavior as builders of our reality based on beliefs in our body and DNA that we carry these stories from our ancestors?
Well, again, you're creating that in the present. Remember, it doesn't really come from the ancestors. You're creating a story in the present about the ancestors and just using it to make a relational idea. But the space between the emotions and the idea of your beliefs and actions and so on and so forth, this is what we referred to many times as the template level reality in non-physical reality that sort of sets the stage for what you will experience in physical terms. So it's the template level reality that is the space between the emotions that's being referred to.
And so when we shift from anger into neutrality, you've created a space between emotions right there, right?
You have altered the template level reality. Yes.
See. And
as above, so below. The as above is the template. The so below is the manifestation of the template. Change the above, the below has to change. That's the space between.
Interesting. You have mentioned that multiple personalities are not what we think. Can you explain what that's all about and if there's such a thing as possession? And can people be possessed by demons? And how does this all relate to the idea of channeling?
There is no such thing as possession in the classical sense. Again, you may match and align with a frequency of something negative and take on the qualities for yourself, but in a sense, all you are doing is possessing yourself in a different way. You're expressing yourself by matching a frequency that is out of alignment with who you truly are. That's what you typically refer to as possession. So the idea is letting go of that, changing your belief system, knowing that it's you that's choosing this and doing this to yourself is what allows you to be dispossessed, so to speak. The idea is that multiple personalities often are representative of connecting to different aspects of your own personality. The idea of disorder comes from certain negative and fear-based beliefs, but you can have multiple personality order as well, which brings us to the idea of channeling. Because all you're doing is allowing different aspects of your own personality to align with either higher levels of your own consciousness or other consciousnesses, and giving a representative of those consciousnesses having the same thoughts at the same time. So again, it's all about resonance, it's all about alignment, it's all about choice, but you are inviolate. You are your own being. Nothing can enter you or possess you in that sense. There is no room in you for anything but you. Nothing can enter. But you can align with other things and express versions of those things through your own energy in any way, shape, or form that you so desire, or choose to, or think you have to. You are connecting sometimes to parallel versions of yourself in terms of the expressions of multiple personalities. And again, in the future, there will be parallel reality psychology that will understand this and start to connect people to different parallel versions of themselves in other versions of Earth, and understand how to coordinate those versions in a way that makes sense in your version.
Amazing. Amazing. It always comes down to that idea of resonance and what
Yes.
you choose to resonate with.
That's
and
all
then
it
you
is.
become that representation.
Yes.
The more highly focused you are in that direction.
You are all tuning forks. That's what you are. You vibrate in accordance to what you believe you need to vibrate in accordance to, and that will be the expression you give off. It's all about you. It's all about your power to choose, and it's all about resonating and aligning with a frequency that you deem for some reason is important for you to align with, positively or negatively.
And can individuals, in a sense, be entrained to suffer as a physical being, and so the connections that they make continue to generate that state of being?
Of course. It's all about your training. It's all about what you've been taught to buy into as necessary for you, or it's part of your themes to transform it.
So you have to recognize that if you're experiencing suffering, the reason it's there is to give you an opportunity to transform it.
Yes, of course.
So we had some questions about UFOs having to do with Ukraine.
Yes.
And the National Academy of Sciences in Ukraine says the skies over Kiev are swimming with UFOs.
Yes.
And they use some sort of special calibrated cameras, and they can see lots of objects that are not identified. Can you confirm that UFOs or UAPs are monitoring the situation in Kiev?
Absolutely. In a sense, if you want, it's where the action is on your planet right now, at least one of the spots. And therefore, it's a good barometer for where the choices are that are being made, what direction they're going in, and which version of Earth will become the versions, or of Earth, versions plural, of Earth, will become those that are open to open contact. So again, we monitor all these kinds of things to determine which version is more likely than other versions to become the versions that we will make contact with. And also to see exactly what it is you're choosing to experience and what kind of transformations you will create on your world.
Is there a frequency range that would be most applicable to contact? In other words, does a human being need to be at a certain frequency in order to experience ET contact?
For the moment of contact, yes. They don't always have to be at that frequency, and many people are not. Some people, again, remember, you're all very compartmentalized in your consciousness, and certain compartments in your consciousness don't have to be anywhere near the frequency of contact, but sometimes other compartments can be. So it may seem to be quite a dichotomy, and you say, well, how can that person, they don't seem to be very spiritual, all of a sudden have contact with an extraterrestrial being? It's because the compartment that contains the frequency that has nothing to do with the theme they're exploring can suddenly jump to a level where they can have that contact. But what they do with it will be determined by usually the rest of the compartments in their belief systems.
And so is there a frequency range that you would describe would be most applicable to having contact?
Well, gamma and higher.
It's gamma.
Yes, 40 cycles to 100 cycles per second in the brain, which again is automatic when you follow the formula. Therefore, we're giving you something that makes it more likely and more probable that you will have contact if you stay there.
So if most of humanity is focused somewhere between 40,000 and 80,000 cycles per second,
Yes.
and there's really a wide range of beings that can have contact with other dimensions.
Well, yes, and I didn't say that everyone on Earth would have contact.
Right. But it's just kind of understanding that the frequency range that you have to be at, so to speak, in order to experience contact is really nothing like 333,000.
Oh, no, not at all. And again, remember, not every type of extra-dimensional being requires a high frequency, because some of them themselves are not necessarily that high. That's why people can interact with the Greys, because they're just other versions of mutated humans.
What frequency range do the Greys express?
No, somewhere around the 50,000 cycle idea, generally. So many humans can experience them because they're just other versions of you.
And the human being that really has incorporated your ideas and has that positive, interactive attitude and energy, what frequency range does that generally represent on a day-to-day basis kind of thing?
At least 80,000, at least. Generally more above 100.
So, because I know that the channel can express a lot of positive energy and that he's done really well with the formula in understanding how to express it. So what kind of frequency range is he experiencing now that he's able to do that?
Typically about 150,000 cycles per second on average. He will have peaks and valleys, but on average about 150,000 to 175,000 cycles per second. When he's in the true creative mode, it can spike above 200.
It's really inspiring.
Yes.
See if there's anything else I can ask you now that we're pretty much out of time.
You can ask us if it's time for people to go into their meditation.
Yes, right. So, yes, if there's anything else that you'd like to share before we go forward.
It is important to go forward. So we would encourage all of you to start to resonate with your meditation. So get relaxed and go forth.
Thank you, Bashar.
You are welcome. Aveo.
Aveo.
And now enjoy your meditation.